Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video, which is reading the books that have been on my TBR for the longest, specifically the ones that have been on there for 12 years. And you know what? These are books that I still want to read. These aren't books that I've just lost interest in and I'm reading for the sake of it. They're all books that I really do have an interest in and do want to read. First of all, and you know what, I can tell you why this one hasn't been read. It's Battle Royale by Koushun Takami, which is, first of all, massive, which is why I haven't read it. It's massive. It's like 600 pages long. It's huge. It's a huge book, but the cover is very, very pretty. I love the cover. I have specifically bought this edition because the cover is so pretty. I love it. I believe that I bought this because it is the kind of OG Hunger Games. So it's a bunch of school students who essentially are taken to an island and they're left to fight to the death, kind of like very much like the Hunger Games. It's also a film and I haven't watched the film, and I've been like saying like I'll watch the film once I read the book, but I haven't read the book still. 12 years later, I still have it and it sounds like something that I would really enjoy. I've heard so much praise about it as well. So I'm sure I will love this. It's just so long that I haven't picked it up. It has been a while since I've read a long book, so I'm long overdue. This book I don't have with me physically right now, but it's Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, which again has been on my TBR since November 28th, 2012. I feel like it's kind of a correlation here. So far, these have both been dystopian novels, and if I recall correctly, back in the OG BookTube days, I'm thinking more like 2013, 2014, dystopia was like a massive genre. Like Hunger Games really popularized dystopia as a genre, and it was everywhere. Everything was dystopian. So that's probably why I've got both of these on here. But I think this is like a literary fiction, dystopia kind of novel where we follow these students at a school called Halisham, and they kind of don't really know anything outside of this school, and I think they're not taught anything outside of it. They're very like isolated in this place, and I think that it's kind of follows the students as like a group of the students as they kind of realize what's happening. Like I don't know too much about it, and I feel like I want to go in not knowing too much at all about it, just so that I kind of get the full experience of it. But I'm very excited to read it. It's been on my TBR for 12 years, but I've always wanted to read this and I just need to get around to it. Then finally, the next one was added a day later on November 29th, 2012, The Way of Shadows by Brent Weeks. This is like a tiny, like mass market paperback. And this is also quite long. It's got like tiny little font. It's just a small book. Can you see the difference? This is a tiny little book. I am still interested in this book, but I think as I've got older, I think this is when I was getting into fantasy in the first place. I think I played a lot of fantasy video games and things like that, but I don't think I'd read that many fantasy books. I think I was still more in my classics, literary fiction and romance, contemporary romance especially kind of vibe. I'd seen this book somewhere. I think I'd probably seen it on BookTube. You can kind of tell from the front, a book about an assassin. And do you know what? I don't think I've ever actually read the blurb of this. How bad is that? So it's something to do with he needs to change his identity to kind of be accepted into this world. And he changes his name and his identity, and then he learns to navigate the assassin's world of dangerous politics and strange magics and cultivate a flair for death. So, you know what? I don't really hear many people talking about this, so I'm not entirely sure how I'll feel about it. And I do feel like I prefer fantasy that has more, females main characters. But you know what? I feel like it will be good for me to step outside my comfort zone a little bit and, you know, read one with a man. I feel like I have a type of fantasy that I enjoy, and I feel like I try and read that, but I think it's good to step outside my comfort zone and kind of like give myself a better understanding of the wider kind of fantasy genre. So those are the 3 books that I will be reading. Stay tuned for more thoughts. Okay, so I've made quite a bit of progress through Battle Royale, which I am loving at the moment. I am really, really enjoying. Much more than I thought I would. It's quite gruesome. Like, it's quite gruesome as I expected. And, like, especially when you take into consideration that these are 15-year-olds killing each other. And, you know, it's not the nicest thing to read, which makes me question why I'm enjoying it so much. So I'm on page 487 I'm on. Yeah, more than I was meant to check in halfway through, but I kind of forgot. So anyway, I'm loving it so far. So like I said, this is kind of this government organized kind of battle royale where they all kind of have to fight to the death. There'll be one winner and all the students have to fight to the death, and there'll be one winner who gets like money, they get loads of money, and they're basically set for life. And it's kind of meant to be this kind of, I think it's like a demonstration of how they don't have a military government. Well, I forgot what the word is they use, but it's like they don't have like a military service or something like that. I don't really understand, but essentially we're set in this dystopia world where it's like this fascist dictatorship that this like South Asian republic is set in. So I'm not sure how far like the republic actually spreads. I think it maybe is just Japan, but it's kind of this like fascist dictatorship. Like everyone, like people can't speak out against the government, people can't do anything, they kind of always have to keep their heads down, can't say anything, people get killed and carted off, and those kind of things happen in this kind of dystopia world that they're in. And I feel like the thing is that this happens in some places in the world, so that's what's scary. Not the battle royale, but just that kind of government. So we're following all these 15-year-olds. There's like 20 girls, 20 boys, I think. I think the main character that we're really following is Shuya, and then we follow a bunch of other of his classmates who are kind of like the more prominent ones. But Shuya, I feel like, is the main character in this. And we're following him. He's mostly spending his time with another character who is injured. She's a girl who's injured, and he's kind of like needs to make sure that she survives because she's important for reasons. So he's essentially with her, and then another guy who's kind of like this outcast, that kind of like is a bit like, he's a bit mysterious, I think. In between chapters following Shuya, we get different chapters just following different characters. Sometimes it's just their one chapter and they're dead. Like it's like just a little bit about them and then how they die, and then some of them get a bit more, they get a few more chapters because of Shuya is also kind of like referencing them. He's like, they're his classmates, and sometimes he's a bit closer to them, or he's thinking about this person would be good to team up with, this person under what they're doing, I hope I find this person. So we get a couple of chapters about different characters who are kind of like, they're just all interwoven into this narrative really well. That's what I think I'm really enjoying. And even like the ones that don't get much, they get like a short chapter. I really like the way that they're characterized, and it feels like you kind of get to know, you know, just a glimpse of what their life is like, what their life was like before, like who they are, kind of their background. It feels like you get to know them, and there's some parts of it are just so sad where you feel like the characterization of these characters are done so well, and it really, like, you're like, oh, now they're dead. Some parts were very emotional. That's how I feel like it's very well done, and the characterization is very well done for these characters. So yes, so far I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I stayed up late trying to read it last night because I was really into it. That's how I missed my midway check-in, because I was gonna check in around 300 and something pages, because I think that's like roughly halfway. Don't ask me, I'm not good with maths. I thought I'd enjoy it, but I didn't realize I'd enjoy it this much. Also, this edition is really cool because there's like a map in it that shows you where like the grid and the map that the students have, and then it's referenced in the book that they're on like F7 or F8, or this is a forbidden zone, blah 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 blah, like the rules of the game. And there's a map in here. Okay, I'll check in when I've read a little bit more, maybe when I finished it, we'll see. But anyway, yes, loving it so far. I was supposed to update as I went along, but unfortunately I didn't do that. So I finished Battle Royale. Even if none of the other books on this list are good, I feel like this has been a successful idea, because this turned out to be my favorite read of 2024. I thank this video idea for making me read this book and finding a book that I loved that much. We mostly follow a character called Shuya, who is like kind of quite a popular, well-liked character in the class. We follow him as he teams up with a girl named Noriko and another character called Kawada, who is kind of a mystery. He's a bit of an enigma. No one really knows too much about him. He seems to have a lot of knowledge and kind of like be someone you want to be around, essentially. But we also follow every character in the class as well. So some of them are reoccurring characters, and we see them come up in the story and cross paths with Shuya, and they kind of have these different overlapping little storylines, and others will just be like 2 pages and they're dead. We see every character and how they end up, what happens to them in the story in the end. I really liked how the author gave like each character a little bit of a backstory, and you kind of saw their life before the games, and they did it in such a way where you kind of got an understanding of who they were in such a short space of time, which I think was really well done. And some of them I felt really emotional about, like watching their little lives just get snuffed out. Some of them were in such unfortunate situations, and just like finding their friends, like it was like heart-wrenching at times. And like there's so much drama because they're all obviously know each other, and they're all kind of questioning like their motivations. They're questioning whether someone is trustworthy, and they all have these different emotions. They go into like survival mode, and some of them end up dead because of they just are kind of don't know who to trust, don't know whether to trust someone, and just kind of unfortunately end up dead because they're in this panic state. There's just like so much drama, so much mistrust, just so much chaos. It was so fun to read. Like there was so much action. There was so much like heart-wrenching kind of moments. It was all emotional. There was just drama. Didn't know what was going to happen. Like you kind of knew that a lot of them were going to die, but you just didn't know how or how things were going. I also really liked that throughout this we got this kind of commentary on society and different kinds of like fascist kind of regimes, authoritarian kind of regimes, the way that the government uses fear to control people, which is primarily what I think the games are there for. They're kind of there to make sure that people don't trust each other, and kind of like collectively punish people, I guess, and kind of like they use it as a way to control people and keep people fearful. Throughout, you have different characters saying different things, like hinting about the way that this government is, even though you kind of see it in some of the soldiers who are like running the games. But you also kind of get characters and like flashbacks and kind of things they would say about how restricted they are and how they don't have all the information. And you kind of build up this picture of this Japan where everyone is kind of in the dark about things. They're all kind of fed information that is incorrect, and you kind of slowly build up this picture in a like very natural way just throughout the story and hearing different things from different people. So the one I read is the translation by Nathan Collins, which I thought was actually like really easy to read. I couldn't put it down. I just kept like wanting more. Even though it's so big, it felt like it flew past, and I just was so excited to read the next chapter just to see what happened next, who we were following, what was going on. One thing that I thought was a little bit like, you know, this is strange and kind of like it took me out a little bit, but was that, you know, there's all these 15-year-olds like declaring love for each other. But I mean, I feel like given the situation, they're in an intense situation. So I feel like intense emotions come up and you're like, what's the most kind of intense feeling that you might have for someone that you also know is going to die? Like, you might as well go and confess your love to them. So I feel like there was a lot of confessing of love and things like that. But I mean, they're in an intense situation, so fair enough. I would highly recommend, if this is on your TBR, if you like any kind of dystopia, horror, action, so good. I thought it was a good mix of both the action and the kind of characters. Yes, highly recommend. And I'm glad that I finally got this off my TBR. Then I also finished Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's a literary fiction, and the whole story is narrated by Kathy, who's 31, and she's kind of recounting her childhood and her life through to her adulthood, I guess. And kind of her time at this school called Hailsham, and her relationship with her two friends, Ruth and Tommy, and kind of the way that their relationships also develop over time. So this is like a dystopia world, which is very similar to our own. And we're kind of thrown into the story with Kathy narrating about their childhood in this home. The pace of the story is quite slow. It's very setting the scene and it's quite slow paced, but I did really like it. It wasn't like the most, like it wasn't a page turner, but it was enjoyable to read still. I love that we kind of like slowly uncover, like peel back these layers of this dystopian society, and you kind of slowly uncover throughout this narration kind of role the characters play in the world. It kind of slowly unravels throughout the story. It's very closely tied to Kathy's relationship with Ruth, who is like her best friend, and then Tommy, who is kind of Ruth's love interest. And they're all kind of quite good friends, and they keep in touch as they leave their school, Hailsham, and then into kind of like their adulthood. It's very thought-provoking, and it brings up some really good questions about how like vulnerable and marginalized people are treated in the world, and kind of the discourse that goes on about people. I liked the way that things were uncovered in this. I kind of don't want to, I feel like I have to be a bit vague because I don't want to give too much away about what the plot is and the kind of different, how the world works. Because I feel like that's something that you really have to read the book to uncover yourself. I really liked how we revealed all these, like slowly revealed all the layers of this dystopia world. But I feel like towards the end, the one thing I didn't like is that it felt like there was it felt like an info dump of just like like how the world worked. Like, so you kind of got this uncovering of what happened. It feels like you were kind of like slowly being fed bits of information. It kind of just felt like a bit like, oh, okay, we just get everything at once now. But other than that, I really enjoyed reading this, and I feel like it's really, really like stuck with me a bit. I really find myself kind of thinking about it. So I can see why it's so high. And I also would recommend, if you have any interest in kind of literary fiction, dystopian novels. So I finished The Way of the Shadows, and unfortunately this one was a 2-star. I didn't really enjoy this one. It started out quite interesting, but I feel like it kind of just lost its way for me. So we're following Azov slash Kyla, who we meet as like a child on the kind of like slums of this world. It's kind of like a grim, dark fantasy. So everything's a bit dark and quite gritty. There's lots of like things that would come up as a trigger warning in here, like child abuse, children in these like horrible conditions, sexual assault, things like that just like kind of happen in this. And I feel like maybe this genre just isn't for me because I don't really enjoy reading things that are too like dark and gritty like that in a fantasy setting, especially. But yes, we follow Azov slash Kyla as he becomes an assassin, and kind of like going through him growing up. We kind of see him going from a child to an adult and his journey as being an assassin and this larger plot that's happening. I really enjoyed the parts where we follow him as he's becoming the assassin, like in his childhood and like his origin story of how he became an assassin and why, and all the things like that. But I feel like as the story went on and we follow him as he grows up, the chapters got a bit shorter. The story, I think, when he was an adult, just kind of like, it felt a bit messy and convoluted, and it feels like you're really thrown into these situations with characters that I just didn't really know. Like, I didn't really know who they were, and I didn't understand. Took ages to kind of get to know who the character was, to then understand what was happening, like, politically, and it felt a bit too convoluted. Like, I didn't understand the political kind of situation until right at the end. And like the magic system as well, I found quite confusing and a bit hard to get to grips with. And even now I'm still like, I don't fully think I understand the magic system of what was happening. So there's that. For every 100 pages, I feel like I was interested in about 20 of them. And I just felt like I lost interest throughout the book in multiple times. Like, there were some good twists. I really enjoyed some of the twists, but like, and some of the like plot points, especially towards the end, I feel like things really picked up, but I found it a bit convoluted and hard to read, and it's quite chunky at like 600 plus pages. Yeah, so I didn't particularly enjoy this, but I'm still glad that I read it because I feel like I kind of have learnt that I don't really enjoy this genre very much, and it's kind of off my TBR, and like I've read it. I can say that I've read it and didn't particularly enjoy it too much. But yeah, like I could have gone without reading that book and I'd be perfectly fine without it. So that brings me to the end. I've been doing this video for so long. Like, this video wasn't meant to take as long, but it's taken me quite a few months to get through these different books. Finally read the books that have been on my TBR for the longest. Let me know if you want to see another video like this where I read the other books that have been on my TBR the longest. There probably are ones that have been on there for 10 plus years still. Like anything I bought in 2015. I'm sure there's a few of those around still. So let me know if you want to see that, and if you think I should do that video. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you liked it, and hit subscribe if you want to see more from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!